Hello and welcome back to another video. This is the first episode of story in which Indra and Ashura never looked at each other directly. Even when they died, their chakra was transferred to Senju and Uchiha clan descendants. Hashirama and Madara met the same fate as their forefathers. Watch as Naruto reunites the two families and breaks the bond of hatred that afflicts the elemental nations. Please smash the like and subscribe buttons. Let's get started. Long ago, in a time forgotten by the people of the world, was an era of enduring rage and unending wars. Mankind had been cursed to fight each other in an eternal war. They fought over petty reasons, for performing horrific crimes against one another or for no reason at all other than violence and death. Different factions often tried to better themselves by weakening their enemies so their own military strength could be greater, only for a greater force to overwhelm them later. Humanity had a curse, a distasteful and infectious curse that all beings were infected with. One, more powerful than any war. The curse of hatred, a potent force that can drive an innocent person to become a beast fueled by rage to hunt down those who wronged them. All the while inflicting more pain, brutality, and spreading further hatred among people. Hatred was like a tree, and it only continued to grow as more and more people were festered by it. Those who were directly affected by it and those who bared witness to those horrific outbursts of fury, no one was ever safe from it. One may even say it was genetic and had the possibility to be passed down the generations. But, what came after hatred? Most would say healing. Healing from the pain of their lives and the pain they brought on others. Only an imbecile would believe that it would bring about a stop to hatred. What comes after hatred would be either of the following things: emptiness, where a person would lose everything that was ever close to them, their own self. The emptiness it brought forth was like an ever-spreading fire with nothing to quench it with, or even more hatred, where the anger would blind people to the truth and make them accept that the world itself was responsible for what happened to them. Among the humans and their inherited hatred was a tree. A tree of massive height and equally massive power. A tree that was worshipped as a god. This tree had a conscience of its own, but very few knew the full extent of its intellect. This tree watched as the humans around it fought and murdered each other and cheated one another for their own gain while turning a blind eye to others. The tree knew that while humanity had the capacity for good and evil, they overwhelmingly chose the latter option. The tree would often look down upon the humans and be disgusted by what it would see. At times it took pity upon them for their short lives and weakness. The colossal tree didn't know whether it liked being praised as a god or feared like the Shinigami. But it did tolerate the level of respect the humans showed it. Even the tree, with all its foresight, knew that one day wisdom would be lost, hope would diminish, fate will be turned in different directions and justice would fall. It was merely waiting for that to happen and for humanity to be entirely consumed by hatred. Every 1,000 years, the God tree bore a fruit of immeasurable power and destruction, a fruit that held its own power within. The reasons why one could not lay their hands upon this fruit had been lost to ages. Thousands of years ago, a man named Tenji was the leader of the land of ancestors. He desired for peace and tried to avoid direct confrontation with his opponents to avoid wars being waged. He wished for a peaceful alliance and negotiations with them. One day he came across a lady who could be considered a goddess at first glance in terms of her beauty. She wore a white robe with 6 tomos in the front and purple lining near her arms. She had beautiful silky and straight hair, the same color as that of snow. But what mesmerized him were her eyes. They were pupilless, giving off a silvery glow. He saw her gazing at the night sky with such patience. He had not seen this person before in his land, so he spoke to her. "May I know who you are?" asked Tenji, curiously looking at her. The lady, for her part, didn't reply for a while. A few seconds later she turned to look at him. "I'm Kagaya Otsutsuki." He found her voice to be very melodic. "Where do you come from? What do you desire here?" And again, Kagaya didn't reply for a few seconds. She didn't know if she could confide to him what she wanted or where she came from. From what she felt of these vile creatures called human, they were filled with anger and darkness. Yet from him she couldn't feel much of it. I desire peace. Peace among everyone. A place devoid of wars and hatred. She looked at him and saw the man nod his head. I come not from another land in this world, but from the stars. Tenji for his part was surprised to hear this. Wanting to know more about her, he began to make small talks with her. After that fateful day, Tenji allowed Kagaya to stay within his palace. He was glad there was another who shared the same ideals as him. They began to meet each other more often and spend more time together each passing day. Soon enough the two became lovers. His devotion to Kagaya's cause for peace made him threaten his own followers with death if they dared threaten peace with the land of that. After Sukazu, the minister of land of that tried to kidnap Kagaya, Tenji was horrified of Kagaya's godlike powers when he witnessed her kill many of his soldiers in self-defense. Eventually, Tenji decided to betray his love to prevent a war from breaking out. However, as the two sides attempted to capture Kagaya, she ate the fruit from the God Tree, aka Shinju, and gained unimaginable powers. With her new powers, she casted the Mugen Tsukuyomi, Infinite Tsukuyomi. As Tenji fell victim to the genjutsu, he asked her what she was, unaware that she was carrying his children. Kagaya Otsutsuki, for her benevolence for ending the wars and stopping the spread of hatred, was named Uzugai no Megami, Rabbit Goddess, because of her two horn-like protrusions which resembled rabbit ears. Like the Shinju, Kagaya was also worshipped as a living god on earth. People bowed before her in respect and reverence for her power and divine will that many considered to have no equal. However, Kagaya had not broken the chain of hatred, instead, merely fractured it. She forced more people to submit to her iron will to stop the hatred from spreading. Her power which was once praised soon came to be feared, and instead of being called the Usagi no Megami she came to be known as the Oni, demon. At some point Kagaya gave birth to two sons, Hagoromo and Hamura. Both children were born with the same power as their mother. The ability to use chakra. These two boys gained legendary prowess of their own using their own innate ability. As the years passed by, the Shinju had become enraged that its fruit was consumed by someone. Angered and outraged that its fruit was stolen, the tree's surfacing fiery hatred had appeared before Kagaya's own magnificent eyes before she even knew the consequences of her actions. The tree underwent a metamorphosis of its own, transforming into a gigantic vile creature whose image mirrored its own hatred. A beast that was christened the Jubi, 10 tails, for its 10 massive tails which could split the land in half. The beast rampaged across the land hoping to retrieve the lost chakra and seek vengeance upon Kagaya for her arrogant acts. The entire world felt the might of the Jubi's hatred. The vile chakra of the fruit had corrupted Kagaya's mind. Thus, upon seeing the beast, Shinju called out to her to become one with itself. When Hagoromo and Hamura found out about their mother's inhuman act of putting people under her control and using them as puppets, they wanted to confront her. But Hagoromo knew that he didn't have enough power to go against his mother yet. He soon came across a toad by the name of Gamamaru who could utilize natural energy. Intrigued by the power in Senjutsu chakra, both Hagoromo and Hamura went to Mount Mayaboku along with Gamamaru. There Hagoromo learned to utilize natural energy, Senjutsu chakra. When he returned to confront his mother, he was further shocked. Hagoromo was horrified that his mother, who had given birth to him, could become one with the vile creature in front of him. During the confrontation, Hagoromo awakened the Rinnegan, God's eyes, due to the pain of harming his brother, Hamura, who was being controlled by his mother. Hagoromo was fortunate that Gamamaru had given him a tag with the kanji for heal, filled with sage chakra, which he used to heal his brother from the mortal wound Hamura received. Why, mother? Why would you commit such atrocious acts? Don't you care about the people of this land? Asked an enraged Hagoromo. Chakra is everything. It's life and it is soul. It needs to be whole again, you insolent child. You dare betray me, spoke Kagaya with an emotionless face. The two brothers fought in a cataclysmic battle that scarred the very earth. The two sons with all their power had fought to the near end of their will to defeat the beast which was their mother. However, the Jubi was connected to the world, just as the world was connected to the Jubi. It was basically immortal. So, if they couldn't kill the beast, then the creature had to be sealed inside a person's body so to not bring about even more catastrophe. Thus, Hagormo sealed the chakra and soul of the beast within himself, and the body of his mother sealed off inside the moon, which he created with one of his decisive move, 6 paths Chibaku Tensei. The husk of the 10 tails was sealed inside the moon as well. So, Hagoromo became the world's first Jinchuriki. And like his mother before him, his own power soared to new heights. He, like his mother, became a god. One even more revered than his mother, wielding the greatest weapon in the world, chakra. Hagoromo, who later became a monk, came to be regarded as the Rikudo Sennin, sage of 6 paths, while his brother Hamura went to live off his life on the moon where he could be close to their mother. Hagoromo created a religion, one which people would aspire to and believe in and give them hope. This religion was named Ninshu, later known as ninjutsu. He aspired to bring peace across the lands by teaching people about chakra and its uses in a tranquil manner. So, Hagoromo shared his chakra with different people who were willing to follow him in his quest to bring about a change in this world. He hoped people would connect the chakra with their spiritual energy, In chakra, allowing others to understand each other. Hagoromo later in his life had 2 sons. The elder one was named Indra Otsutsuki and the younger one was named Ashura Otsutsuki. Hagoromo knew that even with his strong physical chakra, yang chakra, he could not live very long. The reason being the extremely potent and vile chakra flowing through his chakra coils. Thus, he intended to teach his sons and his current followers, who he viewed as companions, to teach all he knew about chakra and ninshu before he could pass on the mantle to one of his sons. Indra and Ashura had a relatively peaceful childhood growing up. Ashura was extremely close to his big brother Indra, whom he idealized and hoped to become like him someday. Indra, well, you could say he was more secluded out of the 2 young children, but he still cared for Ashura a lot. When the time came, both Indra and Ashura began to learn ninshu. It was quite clear that Indra was more intellectual and more into his studies and practicing the practical aspects of ninshu compared to Ashura, who would mostly say, "It's boring. Why must I study this?" One could say Indra was a prodigy in the field of ninshu while Ashura was the complete opposite. One day, Indra created more practical uses of ninshu by stating that, one can use various elements of the nature by changing the flow of chakra in their body and molding it in a different manner by going through hand seals, saru, monkey, tatsu, dragon, na, rat, tori, bird, mi, snake, ashi, ox, inu, dog, buma, horse. Tora, tiger, I, boar, hitsuji, ram, yu, hare. People were extremely impressed by this discovery and some even started whispering about Indra being the one who would carry on the way of ninshu. Although Hagormo was pleased that his son was making progress in ninshu and extending its uses, somewhere he had a nagging feeling that Indra will seclude himself more as his prowess increases while Ashura would remain in his shadow. Still, he had high hopes from both his sons that they would do what he wouldn't be able to in his life, that is, bring about a revolutionary change in this world that will make people understand each other even better and create a world filled with love and harmony. It later became clear that Indra acquired his father's yin chakra and visual prowess, spiritual energy, while Ashura acquired his father's yang chakra and strong body and longevity, physical energy, as, in the following years Indra awakened his Sharingan, copy will I, while saving his brother from a rampaging bear. Ever since Indra awakened the Sharingan, he seemed to have become more cold towards people. He started visualizing that through power, one can conquer anything and always stuck to what is correct and incorrect and abode by his rules. Compared to his brother, Ashura was not too advanced in the usage of ninshu and he could never keep up with his brother during training sessions. Although, people did like Ashura's more cheerful and easygoing attitude, which in turn made him easier to talk to compared to Indra. One day a friend of Ashura came to him asking for his help. Ashura, my mother seems to be very ill and the cure which I'm looking for is across the forests and getting there through the forests will take time. You practice ninshu, yes? Could you help me out? The man said pleadingly. Ashura was considered a friendly and helpful person, thus people mostly came to him or Hagoromo when in need of assistance. Yeah, I suppose I could do that. Just wait here and watch me. Ashura said with a smirk. He did certain hand seals and strong gust of wind was blown from the palm of his hands which tore down a pathway to the end of the forest, making a quick way to the end. Later that day, Ashura was reprimanded by Indra on blindly helping someone without considering the matter because the man who Ashura helped just wanted the forests cut down for his own selfish gains. Indra later locked the man in a dungeon and warned Ashura not to go near him. Ashura, being a forgiving person, went to get him out. However, when Ashura got the man out of the cave, dungeon was inside the cave, they came across Indra waiting there. What are you doing, Ashura? Did I not tell you not to go near the imbecile? Indra asked in a monotone voice. His face showing no emotion whatsoever. Ni-san, we should give him another chance. Punishing someone for such futile acts is not the way. And he hasn't harmed anyone. Said Ashura. It doesn't matter. What he did was against the rules and he must pay the price for it. It was said in such an uncaring manner that it made Ashura flinch. Ashura jumped in front of the man to protect him. Indra jumped towards Ashura and pushed him towards the tree. Ashura hit the tree before falling to the ground. He wouldn't admit, but his Nii-san hits hard. Indra, quicker than a flash, had his hand inside the man's chest sparkling with ration chakra, lightning chakra. Ni-san, why did you do that? Ashura was astonished that his Nii-san could kill someone just like that. When Indra turned to glare at his brother, Ashura saw the three tomos in his eyes spinning in a threatening way. That moment he saw the hatred in his brother's eyes. This world needs order. It needs change. And it is only through power one can hope to bring about such a revolution. That's all, Indra said darkly before vanishing from the spot. Ashura, for his part, could not comprehend why his brother started acting in an uncaring way ever since he awakened the Sharingan. He often felt intimidated by those eyes but shrugged it off, thinking it was nothing. After a while he made a grave for the man and just stood in front of it in the stillness of the night. When he turned to his right, he saw his Tsunade, father, standing beside him. Indra has changed Ashura. His eyes are like my mother's. Those eyes give him unimaginable power. He desires order in this world and wants to do it in his way. The way he goes about ninshu is not how I intended it to be spread. Hagoromo said with a tired sigh. After a few seconds of silence, Ashura walked away from the spot. As years passed by, it became more noticeable why Indra was hailed as a genius. He could accomplish anything with little to no effort and started living a solitary life. He primarily believed other people would merely inhibit his growth and potential. Ashura, on the other hand, could do nothing on his own. But through his determination and will, along with the ideals of relying on others, his friends, did Ashura's talents bloom like a flower in spring. While unlike Indra, who led a solitary life believing that others would only hinder him, Ashura became a capable leader, amassing many loyal followers, most of whom were his childhood friends. He, like his father wished, began to spread ninshu to the world through the help of his friends. Upon his deathbed, seeing both Indra's and Ashura's accomplishments, did the sage choose between the two of them, the heir of ninshu, the prodigious son Indra, or the no-good, untalented Ashura. Knowing of his younger son's exploits and the quality of never giving up on the good inside people, gave Hagoromo hope that cooperation and love would bring about true peace. While lust of power and dominance would only bring about a temporary peace. Thus, Ashura was chosen as the heir to ninshu. Hearing this, Indra walked out of the room angered at his father's choice, while Ashura was shocked. Father, why me? Ni-san would do a better job compared to me, said Ashura. While I do believe, Indra is ahead of you in certain aspects, but Ninshu should be spread to teach love, compassion and be used to bring peace. One must be kind and filled with love and have great patience for that. Those are the qualities I see in you, my son. Later that night, when everyone was celebrating, Ashura went to meet his father again. A doubt somewhere in his mind that his father made a wrong choice still lingering in his mind. He came upon the door which led to the hall where his father sat and made slow walk. He soon reached the place and saw his father sitting there with his eyes closed. Was it the right choice, Oda-san? Ashura asked in a low whisper. Hagoromo opened his eyes, which seemed to give an eerie purplish glow and had several concentric circles and a small black dot as a pupil. He stared at his younger son for a while and answered, Ashura, the world has always been in constant fighting and wars and have started on some of the most unthinkable things. Human life is a precious thing which should not be wasted in fighting wars. It is my belief that one day, the world shall know true peace. Love and compassion are essential part of that. Indra is turning more and more like my mother each passing day. Bringing peace to the world via power and dominance is only temporary, and with time people come to fear the power dominating them as they cannot comprehend it. Come here, my son, I shall now pass on to you what is now yours. Ashura approached his father, whereupon Hagoromo touched Ashura's forehead with his 2 fingers and passed on his yang chakra, also included 6 paths and jutsu powers. In another part of the village, Indra had just killed his 2 most loyal followers. With a tear-stained face, have a single thought in his mind: whenever someone close to me dies, my Sharingan evolves. Soon, his Sharingan evolved to the Manjikyu Sharingan, 3 tomos converging in together to take the shape of 6-pointed star. Furious over his father's choice and being denied what he felt was his, Indra challenged his father's decision. Overcome with anger, jealousy and hate, Indra attacked Ashura, trying to claim what he felt was his birthright. However, Ashura, with the help of others' chakra converging with his and his Rikudu, 6 paths, powers, awakened the ability to use Mokuton and could defeat his older brother. Indra, not taking his loss lightly, left the area before stating he would never follow his way of Ninshu and spend his life trying to destroy him. A few weeks after Indra had left, Hagoromo was counting his final few months on his bed. He knew, he didn't have very long to live. He also knew once he dies, the Jubi would be free again. To prevent that, he separated the chakra of the 10 tails into 9 separate parts and using Omniaton, Banbutsu Sozo, creation of all things, made bodies for the 9 chakras ranging from Ichibi, 1 tails, to Kyubi, 9 tails. He later breathed life into his 9 children. Hagoromo called the bijus his children, and put the chakra in the respective bodies, each biju having a different ability. A few months later, Hagoromo went to his mindscape to have few last words with his 9 children. He looked at Kurama, Kyubi, with a somber look on his face. Kurama had a few tears rolling down his face, as if he was trying hard to keep up the tough act. He was his eldest child and knew how much it would hurt him. A few seconds later he looked at all of them with a serene smile on his face as said, I will not live much longer. Shikaku, 1 tails, Matatabi, 2 tails, Isabu, 3 tails, Son Goku, 4 tails, Kokuo, 5 tails, Saiken, 6 tails, Chomei, 7 tails, Gyuki, 8 tails, and Kurama, 9 tails. Even if you are far apart, you will always be together. You will be in different sizes from how you are now and have different names. But there will come a time when you will be lead down the right path. I hope you learn what true strength is. Hagoromo looks at Kurama and smiles slightly and says, before that time. The feud between the brothers escalated between their respective families, causing war to erupt between them, which continued for ages to come. Never ending through the generations, endless bitter hatred. Indra's descendant took the name Uchiha. The flames of their hatred continuously burning. While Ashura's descendant would later be called the Senju clans, inheriting their forefathers' ideals of peaceful coexistence and love. Later down the line, a man named Saito Senju left his brethren who were more concerned with the war era. Saito himself was a peace-loving man. As the years passed, Saito changed his name to Saito Uzumaki and mastered the arts of Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu to an impressive degree where he could call himself a master in those fields. He soon married a woman named Tashiri Kurihara and lived his life away from the fighting. Although he did keep close relation to the Senjus. Saito lived 4 or 5 centuries before the Warring Era state, however, something occurred that had not been seen before. While the two brothers died, their chakra remained even after their bodies were destroyed, causing the brothers to reincarnate themselves into other individuals throughout the history within their descendants, fueling and continuing the brothers' bloody battle. And with each transmigration, the reincarnations would grow stronger. Thus, after several generations, came the story of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, the reincarnations of Ashura and Indra Otsutsuki. They too started out as friends and saw each other as brothers. The two often fought among themselves, but it wasn't something they couldn't shake off. Eventually, the Senju and Uchiha clans founded Konohagakure no Sato, village hidden in the leaves. But somewhere along the line, especially after the death of his brother, Izuna Uchiha, Madara started to see what he currently believed in was only a hollow truth. That his current belief wouldn't bring the kind of peace he and his brother wished for, and coupled with the pain of his brother's death, made his belief waver and his hatred towards the shinobi world increase. So, Hashirama and Madara battled again, continuing the feud between Indra and Ashura. Madara eventually fell in battle against Hashirama. Soon, Hashirama too succumbed to his extreme injuries and passed away. Once again Ashura and Indra would reincarnate in their descendants. This time stronger than before, and somehow, they both knew their battles in this life would escalate to become more gruesome, bloodier, and would be a path that would turn them topsy-turvy. In every shinobi village, there is a reminder of their previous leaders and heroes to honor their memory and sacrifices they made to protect and defend their homes. In Konohagakure no Sato, there is a certain mountain that shows exactly that. The mountain is called the Hokage, leader of Konoha mountain, and in it are carved the previous and current Hokage of the leaf and portrays the faces of the legendary shinobis. Hashirama Senju, Shodame Hokage, was the former leader of the Senju clan, one of the co-founders of the Leaf Village and the first user of the Mokuton element. He was a caring and kind person who only wished for peace among the different lands. All the villagers had an utmost respect for him. He had married a woman named Mito Uzumaki from the Uzumaki clan, who were a sister clan to the Senju clan. Following his battle with his best friend, Madara Uchiha, and during one of the many wars that were raging during the Revolutionary Era, Hashirama had developed mortal wounds that rendered him unable to fight. Due to his weakened state, he had to pass on the mantle of Hokage to his brother, Tobarama Senju. He was at the time of his death, a shell of his former self. But even now, about 5 decades after his death, he's still remembered by everyone in the village as one of the greatest Hokages to have ever served Konoha. The second face belonged to Tobarama Senju, Naidame Hokage. He was Hashirama's younger brother and became Hokage shortly before his brother's death. He too was an exceptionally strong shinobi. In fact, each of the Hokage were hailed as the strongest shinobi of their time. Tobarama was known for his sensory abilities and extremely strong Suiton affinity, water affinity. It allowed him to use high-rank Suiton techniques in places without any water source by condensing the water molecules present in the air. He lost his life fighting in the First Shinobi World War. But before his death, he appointed Hiruzen Sarutobi, one of his students, as the Sandaime Hokage. The third face on the monument was of Hiruzen Sarutobi of the Sarutobi clan, known for their monkey summoning and extreme skill in taijutsu, hand-to-hand combat. Hiruzen is currently around 41 years old. He's one of the most powerful shinobi in the village, but in his prime he was given the moniker of Shinobi no Kami. Mostly because of his proficient skill in taijutsu and his ability to use all forms of chakra nature that allowed him to use a wide range of elemental ninjutsu. Hiruzen is the current leader of the Leaf Village. It was a time of recuperation among the great 5 nations: fire, wind, water, earth and lightning nation. The Third Great Shinobi World War had ended a while back. Even though there weren't any more battles taking place among nations, they were still weary of each other and were keeping track of other villages' rate of progress. Nations were left winded and were severely weakened as most their shinobi had perished fighting for their nation/village. Although one could say it was Iwagakure no Sato and Kirigakure no Sato who had suffered the most among the great five nations. Iwagakure because of a man who showed unparalleled battle prowess in the age of this war and one who single-handedly won his nation the war. This man was Konoha no Kiroi Senko, Yellow Flash of Leaf. Among his peers, he was called Minato Namikaze. He stands at an even height of 6 feet. His hair was golden blonde, which was rare no matter which country you were in. The hair was spiky and went down to his shoulders, 2 large bangs framed his face, while several smaller bangs hovered just a little over his eyes. His eyes were a mix of violet and blue, although it mostly looked violet in color. Holding up those bangs was a Hite-8 with Konoha leaf symbol on it, the tie itself was blue. His clothing consisted of a pair of blue shinobi pants, which were wrapped from mid-calf in white bandages that went into a pair of black combat boots. His shirt was blue and covered his whole arms and skin tight. Over it he wore a jounin flak jacket. Now Kirigakure no Sato seemed mostly neutral in the war and played their cards when they felt it was plausible. They didn't lose much of their shinobi unlike the other nations. However, they did lose their bijou, tailed beast, Sanbai, 3 tails, to Konoha in their attempt to set the bijou free inside the Leaf Village. Kirigakure is now only left with Rokubi, 6 tails, which is sealed inside Yugura. Even though the cards were stacked against Konohagakure no Sato, they emerged victorious in the Third Shinobi World War. They were put against Kumogakure no Sato, Iwagakure no Sato and Kirigakure no Sato, and yet they fought to keep their nation safe from harm. Konoha always believed in the phrase, Hai no Ishi, will of fire. It is their belief that one must possess the Hai no Ishi to feel the need to protect their home and precious people, which in turn brings out their latent ability to surface. The shinobi of Konoha fought together, bled together and emerged victorious together at the end of the gruesome war. A couple of months after the Third Shinobi War, when the situation around the different villages had cooled down a bit, Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen stepped down as Hokage to pass on the hat to his successor, Minato Namikaze, who was chosen as the Yondaime Hokage, 4th Hokage. Minato was beyond glad. He had achieved one of his dreams, of being able to lead his village as Hokage one day, and another one would be coming true too in the coming months, of starting a family. Kushina and he married secretly earlier, when the war was still on. Their wedding gathering was kept to a bare minimum. Hiruzen, Biwako, Jiraiya and Tsunade being the only one. A month ago, Kushina had informed him that he was going to be a father. Words couldn't explain how happy felt at that time. Being an orphan himself, he understood the value of family. Everyone felt it was time for Sarutobi to step down as Hokage. Even though he was one of the strongest shinobi in the elemental nations, it was obvious the job was demanding a lot of him. Leading your village to victory in 2 great shinobi wars as Hokage was not an easy job. Sarutobi still grimaced at many of his failures during his time as Hokage. The fate of the Uzumaki clan as such. Tobarama Senju had selected him as Sandaime after his death, at the end of the First Shinobi World War. The Second Shinobi War was almost over. Kirigakure had retreated from the war as they didn't have many soldiers to offer to Kumogakure and Iwagakure. To salvage something from this war in their favor, Iwagakure and Kumogakure formed an alliance with Tsunade to launch an all-out attack on Uzi no Kuni with their remaining shinobi, which was the residing place of the famed Uzumaki clan. The Uzumaki clan were known for their mastery in Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu. The other nations feared the might of the Fire Nation when coupled with those from Uzi no Kuni. As the saying goes, to cripple an enemy one must get rid of their allies, when the enemy is at their weakest. It was a single clan against 3 great nations. The Uzumaki clan had sent a request to Konoha to aid them in the battle. Hiruzen knew, at that point of time, his village didn't have the strength to stand up against 3 great villages. Yet, he sent some of his best men to get those out who were still alive by the end of the battle. Speaking of the battle, it was bloody. The whirlpools surrounding the land were glowing in red. The land gave off a heavy stink of iron. Bodies were slaughtered. Even though the Uzumaki clan was wiped out, they ended up destroying 3/4 of the enemy. There was one girl who was found hidden out of sights. She was Kushina Uzumaki, daughter of the deceased Uzukage. She was taken to Konoha and she stayed with Mito Uzumaki, given the two were relatives. Kushina had an incredibly potent chakra, through which she could make chakra chains. That was an ability Kushina discovered she shared with Mito. Even among the Uzumaki, not everyone had the ability to create chains from chakra. It was said that, these chakra chains had the ability to hold down bijus. Tailed beasts itself. Hiruzen did everything he could to make sure Kushina had a normal childhood in Konoha. For a child to witness the horrors of a war is never a pleasant thing. Mito, who was the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko, in her old age had to pass on the Kyubi to Kushina. It was not because she wanted to. It was out of necessity and only an Uzumaki could contain the great beast. Thus, Kushina Uzumaki became the second Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed demon fox. He grimaced again thinking about Rin Noara and Naruto's fate. She was a student of Minato. She had an average height, one of the most beautiful brown hair and a single purple stripe on each cheek like that of the Inuzuka clan. She was in a genin team with Kakashi Hatake and Obito Uchiha. Although Kakashi showed a cold demeanor to almost everyone after his father, Tsukumo Hatake's death, he tried to get along with his team. Rin was sort of the moderator of the team. She kept Kakashi and Obito in check whenever they got in a fight. Even though Rin wasn't a frontline fighter like her teammates, she excelled in medical field. She and Kakashi got closer after Obito's untimely death during their first C-rank mission on Kanobi Bridge at the end of the Third Shinobi War. It was that mission that gave rise to Sharingan no Kakashi. Obito, during his final moments gave his newly awakened Sharingan to Kakashi as a gift for his promotion to Jounin. To make sure, she did not have to witness another death of one of her colleagues, she worked hard day in and day out to improve her medical ninjutsu. Hiruzen still remembered Rin asking him, if Tsunade would be returning to village anytime soon, as she wanted to further her studies under Tsunade if she agreed to help her. When the Third Shinobi War was its end, Kirigakure kidnapped Rin from within the Leaf Village. She was made into the Sanbai Jinchuriki with an extremely weak seal which would release the Sanbai, once she's within the Leaf Village and eventually kill her. It was Kakashi who first noticed that she was missing from the village. He immediately informed the Sandaime and Minato about this. Minato and Kakashi soon went after her trail and found her among several Kiri Umbu. Both of them took quick care of the Umbu around and quickly returned to the village. Fortunately for Rin as well as the Leaf Village, Jiraiya and Minato fixed the seal for the time being. Rin's chakra wasn't powerful enough to hold down a bijou. Also, the sudden influx of the Three Tails' potent chakra was overwhelming her chakra coils. Hence, their predicament being that they had to look for a new Jinchuriki and somehow convince Tsunade to come back. She was the only one who had the expertise to save Rin, after the extraction of the bijou. Rin had to be kept in the hospital's separate wing only meant for the Hokage. She was under constant supervision to ensure her safety. The only soon-to-be-born child who would be strong enough to hold Sanbai down was Naruto. Being an Uzumaki provided him with potent chakra and longevity. Kushina at first was adamant about not being able to bring herself to do it to her baby son. It wasn't any less difficult for Minato. But he knew, as a soon-to-be Kage, the welfare of the village will fall on his hands. Also with Kushina and him alive, they will be able to look after Naruto. Kushina, being a Jinchuriki herself, could help Naruto with the hardships that came with the life. Thus, after many arguments and stating the pros of making their son the Sanbai Jinchuriki, Kushina agreed to it. Minato planned to use the Hack-Fuin, 8 tetragram seal, for the sealing of the three tails. The only people aware of this situation were Minato, Jiraiya, Sandaime, Kushina, Kakashi and the three elders of Konoha. Them being, Danzo Shimura, Hamura Mitokado and Koharu Utatame. For months after Minato was chosen as the Yondaime Hokage and because of the end of Third Shinobi War a temporary peace had prevailed across different villages. The populace of Konoha seemed pleased and safe with Minato as their Hokage. They knew he would protect them from all uncertainties. The civilians and ninja alike went as far as to claim Minato as the greatest hero the Hidden Leaf Village had seen. He was the first shinobi in the elemental nations to be given the SS rank status and a flea on sight order. He was also able to convince Tsunade to return to village. When Minato explained the situation to her, she couldn't bring herself to say no to him looking at his pleading face and the predicament he and his family was in. Jiraiya too, stayed more in the village to have a regular check on Rin's seal and because of Tsunade, Minato and Kushina. 4 months later in the past 4 months, a lot had changed in the Konohagakure no Sato. Since Minato's ascension to the Hokage position, he had taken control of the shinobi and civilian council in his hand. No council could act without his knowledge nor could they hold any meetings in the council chamber without alerting him regarding the issue at hand. Only in case of war, will the shinobi council gain complete autonomy of making any decision concerning the welfare of the village. The civilian council, though they argued against that, begrudgingly agreed upon being reminded who the leader of the village is. The medical facility of the village had vastly improved since Tsunade had taken control of workings of the hospital. Her apprentice Shizen Kato had helped her immensely in this aspect. She was glad her suggestion of 1 medic per team was authorized by Minato. This would increase the survival rate of the shinobi during missions greatly if the medics are trained accurately. She had started a program of selecting young genins who had good chakra control to be taught in the arts of medical ninjutsu. Rin's condition, although it was still fragile, seemed to be more stable since Tsunade took charge of her health. She had to apply healing chakra over her chakra network daily to keep the stress of Sanbai's potent chakra to a minimum. The guards were still posted outside of Rin's room in case of an emergency. Kakashi too had changed from his cold demeanor towards everyone. He had joined up in ANBU now, seeing as his team was no more. He started appreciating his comrades more. Though he wasn't sure whether to be thankful for the cause of this change. He had lost a lot in life. From his father committing seppuku, suicide, to one of his teammates / now closest friend dying and now another on the verge of dying. Kakashi was glad to have found a father figure in his sensei. Minato and Kushina were both close to Obito, Rin and Kakashi. Obito's death had saddened them both and now seeing Rin in her current condition didn't make situation any easy for them. Kakashi knew, Minato was going to have a child soon and the decision of the 3 tails to be sealed into him. He vowed to himself to look after the kid and help him guide along the right path. Kakashi was also glad to have little brother figure soon in his life. Night of October 10th, Jiraiya, Minato, Kushina, Tsunade and Hiruzen were inside Hokage office. There were seals glowing around the room alerting the people in the room of the fact that they were not going to be disturbed or overheard. Minato was sitting behind his desk with Hiruzen standing next to him. Kushina was sitting on a nearby sofa along with Tsunade. Jiraiya was standing in a corner across the room. The last few months had also taken its toll on everyone. Kushina was suffering from exhaustion during pregnancy. She was constantly worried about her seal which held the 9 tails and about the sealing of the 3 tails into Naruto. Minato was working constantly as well along with Jiraiya to ensure the 9 tails didn't break free during the child delivery and the sealing of the 3 tails. Jiraiya stood looking at the people in the room. He sighed knowing that his apprentice was worried. Even he was. Until the ordeal of Naruto's birth and the sealing of Sanbai was over with, none of them could act naturally. He often took care of Kushina at her house when the others were busy with their work. He really thought of her as a daughter now from these last few months. Minato and Kushina even asked him to be the godfather of their kid. He was of course happy to accept. Seeing that everyone has been quiet for a while, Hiruzen cleared his throat to gain everyone's attention. As we know, Kushina will deliver the child at the safety of the Hokage safe house. Only we, the caretakers, Biwako and Tsunade in charge of delivering Naruto know what is happening. Tsunade, would you ask Shizen-chan to stay with Rin since you won't be around to check up on her tonight? Tsunade nodded. Once Naruto is delivered, Jiraiya will take him to the sealing chambers and Minato will recheck the seal holding Kyuubi. Later, Minato will get Rin to the sealing chambers, where the three tails will be safely transferred to Naruto. While the sealing will take place, Shizen-chan will look after Kushina and Tsunade will be alongside Rin to ensure her safety after the extraction of the three tails. Does everyone understand? Hi, everyone said at once. Good, the task beings tonight. Minato and Jiraiya, have you prepared yourself for any case? Hi Hiruzen-sama. Minato said. Jiraiya settled for nodding his head. Good. I will see you all when this is over then. Be careful and good luck. Tsunade, Biwako and the caretakers had already arrived at the Hokage safe house along with Kushina, who was beginning to go in her labor. Outside the safe house were several ANBU, who were guarding the place. They had been briefed on the details and had been sworn to utmost secrecy by both the Sandame and Yandame. Minato along with Jiraiya soon arrived at the Hokage safe house and saw Kushina already in labor. Minato dashed to Kushina's side and saw her screaming and held one of her hands with his left and his right hand on Kushina's seal to hold back the Kyuubi. Jiraiya stood next to his pupil while Tsunade and Biwako were working on the child's delivery. Ah! Screamed Kushina as she was starting to push, fully clad in a hospital gown and a sheen of sweat coating her face. Come on Kushina, you're doing fine. Minato said in a soothing excitement as he stood next to the mother of his child. Kushina gulped in more air to let out another agonizing scream. Damn you Minato! This is all your fault, you bastard, she roared at the Hokage as she crushed his hand that held hers as a sign of support. The blonde male did his best to not grunt in pain while also keeping the Kyuubi in check. But he couldn't help himself from falling to his knees from the woman's deathly grip. That's it Kushina-chan, you're nearly there. I'm starting to see the head. Tsunade exclaimed. Just hurry the hell up and get him out of me. Kushina shouted back. You're doing great Kushina. Just a little more and it will all be over soon. Encouraged Minato. Oh, don't give me that. I wouldn't even be in this mess if it wasn't for you. You know. Screamed Kushina. With a sporadic mind in the heat of the moment, she suddenly raised her free hand to strike the young Kage in the face. Before she could hit him though, Minato quickly used the Kawarami no Jutsu, substitution jutsu, to replace himself with the nearest thing to him and quickly placed both his hands on Kushina's seal to keep the bijou in check. Unfortunately for the target, who was Jiraiya, was quickly launched through the walls by Kushina's punch. Sorry sensei, better you than me. The strength of her hits is almost on par with Tsunade-sama. It's just scary. Minato thought sympathetically as he gazed at the Jiraiya-shaped hole in the wall. The legendary shinobi's legs were sticking out and dangling over the broken piece of the wall and were the only parts of him visible from his laid position on his back. Luckily, the room he burst into was empty, leaving only the small group to hear his groans of misery. Although Tsunade wanted to laugh witnessing the scene in front of her, she couldn't as she currently had to focus on getting Naruto out of his mother. Minato was pulled out of his train of thought when Kushina screamed again. Get this fucking kid out before he kills me. It's almost done Kushi-chan. Just one more push. Tsunade said eagerly. You heard her, you're almost there. You can do it. Minato added with a growing smile. Kushina glared with her violet eyes at Minato and gave him a death glare. Shut up. I would like to see you try and push out a child that doesn't want to leave. It was but after a minute or two when Kushina gave one final shout of exertion and the first cry from the baby silenced the room. Tsunade wasn't stopped and with a gentle smile grabbed the newborn and cut the umbilical cord. Cleaned and wrapped him up in a small forest green blanket before handing her to Kushina. Minato was overjoyed hearing his son's first cry. He couldn't believe he was a father now. By this time Jiraiya had already recovered from his unfortunate accident and stood beside Minato with a wide smile on his face. "So, Minato, how do you feel? Now that you are a father?" Jiraiya asked eagerly. "I don't know, sensei. It's overwhelming," said Minato in a trance-like state. Just as Tsunade handed the baby to her daughter-like figure, she gently said, "Kushi-chan, allow me to introduce you to your son, Uzumaki Naruto." Meanwhile Herzuan was calmly looking at the village from top of the Hokage tower. Suddenly he felt the wind change. He knew something important has taken place or is going to take place. One may call it years of shinobi experience or just an aged man's intuition. He knew the coming time is going to be certainly different. He just didn't know how right he was. The Toads have been one of summoning contracts of Konohagakure no Sato for around 3 decades now. They are said to be among the mightiest summons including the slugs and the snakes. Mount Myaboku is the place where the Toad clan resides. Among the Toads, there was one extremely old Toad who was known by their summoner and the other Toads as the Grand Toad Elder. He was the size of a battle toad, almost half the size of the Hokage monument. But in his old age, he couldn't move around much. Hence, he sat in his seat almost all the time. He too felt the sudden change in wind and instantly had a small smile on his aged wrinkled face. He now knew, the prophecy he prophesied about a very long time back to his friend had begun. He immediately called upon the nearby Toads to ask them to inform Fukasaku to summon Jiraiya as soon as possible. Back in Konoha at the Hokage safe house the tired but happy Kushina gazed down at the still crying baby in her arms with glistening eyes. "Hello little one," she cooed as she brushed her hands over the baby's bright blonde hair which seemed long for his age, smiling with as much love as she could muster. Soon Naruto stopped crying as he looked up to his mother to show his curious and mesmerizing violet eyes. After what seemed like an eternity of childish contemplation, he finally smiled back, making him look even more adorable to everyone else. "Look, his eyes are violet just like Minato and Kushina although he has Minato's hair and face. He's almost like a mini Minato," Jiraiya said with a chuckle. "Yes, but it looks like he has Kushina's nose, chin and ears. His skin tone is even a lighter shade like Kushina's and his eyes are the same shape as hers. Oh, and look at those whisker marks." Tsunade almost squealed at the end out of pure adoration towards the adorable baby Naruto. "He is, isn't he?" Kushina whispered more to herself. She couldn't keep the smile from her face as she took in every detail of the baby. In her mind, he was the most adorable thing she had ever seen and most probably the most beautiful entity. "Don't you agree, Minato?" Kushina asked without looking away. "Definitely, and when he gets older he'll be popular with the ladies." Minato chuckled with a slight gleaming gaze. "Hn. Like those hussies have a chance with my Naruchan. Let them try and sink their claws in my baby. They must deal with me then," said Kushina with mock glare at Minato which made everyone chuckle instead of him, who just felt a slight shiver run down his spine. Minato slowly kneeled and touched his son's face and kissed him on the forehead making him gurgle. He then looked Kushina straight in the eyes with a loving gaze and said, "Thank you Kushi-chan. He's the most beautiful thing we have ever done together. And I promise, I shall protect our baby boy and you with all that I have in me." Suddenly there was a puff of smoke and Fukasaku was standing on Jiraiya's shoulder. He looked around where he was and his eyes fell on Naruto's smiling form still looking around curiously. Is he the child Great Toad Elder was talking about? Fukasaku thought and then tried to get a sense of his still undeveloped chakra coils in the baby's body using senjutsu. Astounding. The potency of his chakra which is going to be formed will be unimaginable. Fukasaku thought amazed. What are you doing here, Fukasaku-sensei? Jiraiya asked. Oh, Jiraiya-chan, the great Toad Elder has summoned you, and it's important. It's about the prophecy. Fukasaku said, finally taking his eyes off Naruto. Naruto, meanwhile, was looking at the talking toad in a very manner and gurgled as if trying to laugh. Now. Do we really have to go now? Naruto is born right now. Can't it be done a bit later? Jiraiya asked. No, it can't be, Jiraiya-chan. It's necessary. Jiraiya looked a bit down upon hearing that. He looked at Minato and gave him a knowing look. Soon, Jiraiya along with Fukasaku vanished out of everyone's sight, indicating that they were reverse summoned. Kushi-chan, I'd like to take Naruto to the maternity ward to make sure that he's in good health. I also want to give you a sedative that will make you sleep for a while so that your body can rest and recover from the strain. Said Tsunade professionally. Fine, but I don't want anyone going but you touching my Naru-chan. Is that clear? Kushina requested tiredly, the excitement finally getting to her mentally and physically. She immediately fell into unconsciousness as her eyes became to drool from the heavy exhaustion her body recently go through. Of course, I wasn't going to let anyone near him anyhow. Tsunade whispered slowly before proceeding to take Naruto from Kushina's hands. Just as Tsunade took baby Naruto into her arms, there was swirling of air beside her, from which a man appeared. He kicked Tsunade away and took Naruto into his arms and immediately put a kunai through Biwako's heart, who ran toward Naruto upon seeing him being taken by an unknown individual. Tsunade had quickly recovered upon being kicked away and saw that Minato was helping her up. Screams ran through the room as the pair saw Biwako and the caretakers fall to the ground around them. Minato and Tsunade finally saw a man now standing in Tsunade's previous place, an orange mask on his face and a black cloak over his body. He held Naruto in his arms, who was crying hysterically, with a kunai ready to kill him too. Naruto! Minato and Tsunade shouted. Meanwhile in Mount Myaboku, Jiraiya along with Fukasaku, who was now standing on the ground beside him, were now standing in the sacred land of the toads. In front of Jiraiya, there were several statues of toads which seemed to be made of stone. These statues were in fact living toads who failed to control the amount of senjutsu chakra flowing through their body. So, what's the matter, sensei? Jiraiya asked, looking down at the small toad beside him. Walk with me, Jiraiya-chan, and all shall be explained to you in due time. Said Fukasaku. Hey, don't talk with me in riddles. Tell me what's going on that you had to bring me all the way here at such an important time. Jiraiya said indignantly. Fukasaku remained calm and did not bother replying to the self-proclaimed pervert and started walking towards the chambers where the great Toad Elder resided. Jiraiya, seeing that he wasn't going to get any answers from him, decided to follow him to the older sage. On the way to the chambers, Jiraiya voiced his concerns. You said it's about the prophecy. Has the Elder Sama had another dream regarding the child of prophecy? Jiraiya inquired in a serious manner. It's not a dream per se. He says he felt a sudden change in the wind. His senjutsu prowess is even greater than mine. So, it should not surprise you he could feel something or someone as far as in Konoha. He did not tell me much about it. Just that it has something important to do regarding that prophecy and asked me to summon you immediately. Said Fukasaku, still looking in front of him. Jiraiya and Fukasaku soon reached upon two large doors which were guarded two battle-attired toads. The two toads, upon seeing the pair walking towards the door, opened it for them. The great Toad Elder, who was sitting on his seat, had his eyes closed while Jiraiya and Fukasaku approached him. Upon looking at him, one might say he's just a senile old geezer who seems to be oblivious to his surroundings. Which is true to some point, as the Elder Toad seems have a sort of short-term memory at times. Fukasaku croaked once to gain the great elder toad's attention and said, I have summoned Jiraiya-chan for you. Who did you summon again? The old toad asked, not remembering himself asking Fukasaku to summon anyone. You senile old fart, Jiraiya-chan, our summoner. You asked me to summon him regarding the child of prophecy. Yelled an annoyed Fukasaku. Yes. Jiraiya. Spoke the elder toad as if he remembered something important now. All this while, Jiraiya, who was standing beside Fukasaku, sighed upon hearing his conversation again, for most probably the 1000th time. Jiraiya bowed to him once and spoke, Elder-sama, why is it that you have summoned me? Fukasaku-sensei told me it is something important regarding the child of prophecy. He now looked straight at the great elder toad and said proudly, I know Minato is the child of prophecy. He has excelled me in all aspects of being a shinobi. He even surpassed me in senjutsu training. Although, I shouldn't be much surprised. He was always a prodigy when it came to shinbai arts. He even shares the same dream as me, of bringing peace to this war-stricken world. Jiraiya was indeed very proud of his prized pupil. Minato was his greatest accomplishment till now, and he believed he would be till the very end. The elder toad seemed amused upon hearing what Jiraiya had to say. The child of prophecy has taken birth today, Jiraiya. I'm certain of it. This sudden change of wind, I have felt it only once before. And this time the wind seems much stronger than the previous time I felt. Spoke the great toad sagely. Do you remember the prophecy I told you about? Asked the elder toad. Yes. I do remember. There will come a time, when a man who proclaims himself as a hermit shall lead a boy with violet eyes to bring about a great change in the accursed war-stricken world. This child shall unite all the bijus and befriend them. That is what you told me a long time back. Said Jiraiya. Yes, that is true. The child has taken birth today. You must look after him, Jiraiya. Train him, teach him the ways of the world and make sure his heart stays pure. The child shall be the guide that will lead this dark world into the light. Spoke the great elder toad looking at Jiraiya. Jiraiya, for his part, did not know what to think. He always believed that Minato was the child of prophecy. So being told that he isn't, he felt disappointed. Thinking again, the only child Jiraiya knows that was born today was Naruto. Jiraiya now felt surprised finding out that Minato's kid is to be the one to become the light in the dark. Are you sure about this? Is it not a bit too soon to tell? Said Jiraiya with a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Yes. I am sure of it. I haven't felt such presence in 1,000 years. The child has the potential to become the second coming of Rikudo Sennin, sage of 6 paths. Jiraiya, you must make sure the child grows up peacefully and grows to love the world around him. The child seems to have one of the purest hearts I have sensed. I am sure even Fukasaku shares similar thoughts as me. Spoke the great elder toad. Jiraiya looked at Fukasaku and saw him nod once. Jiraiya, although was saddened that his first prediction hadn't come true about Minato, but at the same time was filled with joy about Naruto, his godson. He vowed to himself to be there for Naruto, look after him like his own grandson and teach him the ways of the shinobi. He would instill every bit of knowledge in Naruto as he would grow up and make sure Naruto enjoys the world around him as much. You don't have to ask me to look after him, Elder-sama. I shall look after my grandson. Jiraiya views Minato as his own son, hence he calls Naruto his grandson, to the best of my abilities and make sure he grows up to be a fine man. Said the toad sage hermit proudly and bowed to him once. Jiraiya and Fukasaku soon left the chambers and went to the same place they appeared first when they left Konoha, with Fukasaku once again on Jiraiya's shoulder. Well, Jiraiya-chan, you know what to do now. Naruto-chan will grow up to be an important boy in the future. If you want to finish your senjutsu training anytime soon, you can come to me and Ma anytime you want. Said Fukasaku. Yes, Fukasaku-sensei. I will finish it soon. Now is not the time, I suppose. It was a lot to take in initially. But now that I think about it, Naruto is the son of two legendary shinobis, Minato and Kushina, and Minato has already surpassed in almost everything. Naruto is bound to grow up to be a powerful figure both in terms of being a shinobi and in getting the ladies. Jiraiya said with a lecherous grin at the end in the hopes of getting inspiration for his future Ika Ika Paradise books. Fukasaku did not know what to do with him anymore and just ignored his last comment. Off you go now, Jiraiya-chan. Enjoy the first moments of Naruto-chan, said the small toad as he hopped off Jiraiya's shoulder and prepared to send Jiraiya back to Konoha. Jiraiya soon found himself standing in the same place, before he went to Mount Myaboku. He saw that Kushina was unconscious and Minato was standing beside Tsunade, who seemed to be hurt, and Minato had a worried look on his face. Jiraiya immediately ran towards them and looked around the room to see dead bodies of the caretakers and Biwako lying in the pool of their own blood. Jiraiya turned around just in time to see a man wearing an orange mask with a swirling pattern holding a crying Naruto with a kunai held at his throat. Before he could ask Minato or Tsunade what's going on, the masked man spoke. Yondaime Hokage. Step away from the.
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.